opinion is. And we have a process that we're going to follow to work our way through it. So there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on online. I was going to look on this. And there's some inaccuracies, and we're going to clear those up tonight. And we're going to talk about exactly what we're doing is because we want to build a world-class education system. And we want our children to be bilingual. And we want them to do...
What about the French school district then? How is it?
Okay, like I said, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to debate for airtime. If you don't want to listen to me, that's fine.
Seriously, it's discrimination. You're doing it with the Anglophone
Okay,
system.
let him talk, and then we can talk afterwards, okay?
So the purpose of tonight, I respect your opinions, and that's why we're here tonight. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what your opinion is. We want to hear what things you like about what we're proposing, what things you don't like, what you would suggest that we change. And we have a process for that because we want constructive feedback. And that's why we came here. Because it's important. Education is important. It's important for all New Brunswickers. I believe that we need to create a common learning environment for all our students so that they all have an equal opportunity for success. Currently, unfortunately, we have streaming. And the streaming, because of the nature of it, has disadvantaged the prime students. Because the majority of needs are in those classrooms. So this is a way to address that, to create a common learning environment, to be inclusive for all our children and all our families in New Brunswick, and to create a bilingual student population so that it's normalized in our province and you can communicate in whatever language you want wherever you go in the province. Well, I guess English or French, that's how we're doing because I could ask about three or four languages and that's really not, we're not anywhere near that in New Brunswick, we're still working on it too. So like I said, we want our students to graduate with a minimum level of conversational French. Minimum.
Minimum?
And as we go through the school years, then students will get an opportunity to take more advanced and enriched courses, and especially in high school when they can choose their own pathway to improve their French and come up with more than just conversational French. That's the minimum level that we want, which I think is a good goal. We need to have children that are going to speak French with confidence. We need to have students that are going to be good math students, have solid language arts, and that they are capable of conversing in both languages. So I read a lot of stuff online, and a number of people have sent me emails. And you'll get an answer. It'll take some time. When we're looking at going forward, and we're looking at some of the things that have been said, I've heard there's no targets for reading and writing. Well, you're probably not aware, but there are no targets currently. So the targets are in teachers' classrooms. There's no provincial target. Well, I hear some comments about that, and then we are looking at what's an acceptable target for immersion students. We do have children have to pass the grade 9 ELPA, which is a reading comprehension test, and they have to be successful on that to get a high school diploma in Brunswick. So I believe this is a great program. I spent 35 years in education. 20 of those years, we've talked about classroom composition issues for at least 20 of the years, if not more. We've worked hard on including all of our students, and now we need to work hard on a common learning environment. Children don't all advance at the same pace. We're well aware of that. And we will adapt to the learning needs of our children as we do today. Our children today don't learn at the same pace. There currently exists a kindergarten curriculum and a grade 1 curriculum. So there's a grade 1 French immersion curriculum for French immersion language arts and the other activity-based subjects. And, that already exists, so we're going to follow it. What we're developing is what does that look like in kindergarten? Because if anything, we don't have French immersion in kindergarten. And now we will. It's going to look different than the current model. And we can agree or disagree on what you want to call it. But our goal is to create well-rounded students. So I'm really pleased that you took the time to come and join us this evening. I do apologize that we didn't anticipate such a great turnout. And it's really great to see everybody that you took the time to come and join us this evening. We are genuinely interested in your feedback. That's why we call it a framework. It's a framework. So based on the feedback we get from across the province, will help us develop what the program will actually look like. And that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. So I hope that you take advantage of the questions and that you take advantage of providing feedback to us. We're doing the World Café because it's an opportunity to provide constructive feedback. I don't like what you're doing, it's not really constructive feedback. Like, I accept that as your opinion, and that's fine. I don't have any issue with that. And I respect your opinion. But at the end of the day, we need to go beyond that. How can we improve our Anglophone school system? Because every child has the right for an equal education. So how can we get there? And that's my challenge for you when you're going through the questions. Keep that in mind. So thank you for coming up to join us this evening. I'll give the mic now to my Deputy Minister of Education, John McLaughlin, who's going to walk through what the framework currently is suggesting.
Thank you, Minister. And again, I echo the Minister's comments to welcome everybody. It's such a big crowd, and that is great. And he's right, this is a proposed model. It's a model that was put out there to get feedback, to consult with people, to hear in many ways. Open meetings such as this is one, but also we have an online survey. We have an email address where people can send their comments and their questions, and we get back to people on that. So many different ways. And we're also having consultation sessions with various groups. So we're looking for as wide a representation as we can of the comments. And we don't believe, I certainly know, I've spoken to people here this evening, not everybody is enamored of this model, and that's okay. We want to hear from everybody, and as the Minister said, we'd like to know, what is it about it that you don't like? What are the things that concern you about it? Do you have a different way, a different solution that we could be looking at? So, as the Minister mentioned, this is really, it's about two things. The focus is on French immersion, and I'm going to get to that in a minute for why we're looking at that. But it's also about in strengthening the Anglophone education system in general. Because as he said, there's an unintended consequence that occurred with the evolution of French immersion. And that's the streaming effect that the Minister spoke about. And it is very real. And the data is very clear. that over 90% of the students in New Brunswick's Anglophone sector schools with personalized learning plans, the students with the highest needs are in non-immersion classes. And that's not something that, French immersion teachers or the French immersion people who developed it intended. It's the way it happened. And so, yes, French immersion has been very successful. If the goal is to have that conversational or intermediate or B11 level of oral proficiency, then by the end of grade 12, students who are in the early French immersion program, almost all of them achieve that. So that's great. The problem is that about 60% of the students in our Anglophone sector are not in French immersion. And very sadly, their achievement is extremely low. It's hardly measurable. And that's not equity, that's not fair. And it's created a classroom composition environment that's very challenging for teachers to teach in and for students to learn. And the minister spoke about looking for a common learning environment. That's one of the benefits that this new model will create. And the other thing I want to point out is that many of the students who are not in French immersion would be students who would so benefit from leaving school with that French competence. Students who are going to be working in the service industry or trades or retail, hospitality, areas they won't be going into universities, for example. They would so benefit from the gift of having a strong French second language competence, and they don't have it. They're not getting it now, and our system is set up that they won't. So those are a few of the bits of the context that I wanted to talk about before I just get into the framework. Again, this is a proposed model. We want your feedback. My job at the end of this consultations period, which is February 3rd, is to take all of the information that we've heard and to make my best advice to the minister. That's the job of the deputy minister. To make the best advice on what I believe is in the best interest of the province of New Brunswick, our students and their parents. And that's not going to be easy because, as you know, I can sense in this room, there's great disagreement with this model. But I also did wander around and spoke to some people who are very supportive of it. And so all voices are important. And we hope you'll have an opportunity to hear from everybody. And if people aren't comfortable speaking tonight, please send us their feedback at that email address and we'll make sure that you get it. So, here's what the model is. As the minister said, we already have a curriculum for grade 1 French immersion. So, we're not starting with nothing. We have a curriculum for grade 1 immersion, and our team is working now to adapt that we have a grade 1, and our team is working to adapt that for kindergarten. And there's a lot of research that talks about the earlier the better. I wish we could be doing this in early childhood, having our students exposed to and learning and practicing and becoming competent in French. I believe, as a proud New Brunswicker and Canada's only bilingual province, it's something that's just very important that we achieve for all of our kids. So, up at the top, all K1 students, it's significant that we're starting with kindergarten. And this next year, K1, and then moving up through the system. The proposal is for students to spend half of their time in English and half of their time in French. Excuse me, I'm going to dry it out here. Now, there's the term immersion. This isn't immersion. Is this immersion? What is immersion? There's no trademark on immersion. Immersion is it's a concept of an immersive environment in a particular language. And there are places that have a 50% immersion model. And when you think about it, half of a child's education for the first 6 years of their education will be spent in French. That's a lot of the time to be spent in French for all of the students in New Brunswick. Is it 90%? It's not. It's 50%. So half of their program would be math taught in English and English literacy taught in English. Now I did have the benefit of being named as one of the co-commissioners on a review of New Brunswick's Official Languages Act, but also the New Brunswick learning of New Brunswick languages in schools. And one of the things we heard over and over and over again, and we interviewed many teachers and we interviewed many parents, many people reached out to us, and their number one issue with French immersion is that math is taught in French. Now, many people will say that it should be. A lot of parents are saying they want their children's math to be in English. They feel that it's, as the child is learning a language, to be also learning mathematics concepts, which very young start to become more and more complex, and they want to be able to help the children in math. That's one thing we heard. The other thing we heard was that while parents value French second language, they really want their kids to develop strong first language literacy skills. Again, I know there are different opinions on that one. There's different bodies of research on both sides on that. This is the model we put because we think it makes sense and because of what we heard from parents and from many teachers. So 50% of the time in English, 50% in French. But French would be French immersion language arts. So early on, and this is where some of the confusion started, early on when students first enter this program, of course it's going to be a very strong oral language program. A lot of experience, exposure to getting kids comfortable speaking in French. That doesn't mean there's no reading and writing in French. For heaven's sakes, you can't spend 13 years in French and not learn any, and not be engaged in any reading and writing. What it means is that as it's appropriate for each child, those components are added, and students are challenged at the appropriate level and the appropriate time. Each child's different. We know that in education. Children learn quickly in certain areas and not in others. And so we're not going to hold students back. Teachers don't do that now. It's called personalizing learning. And that's the intention here, that it would be a full language arts program implemented as appropriate for the children. The other part of the French component beyond French language arts is things like sort of thematic, engaging units that would bring together social studies, early science concepts, experiments, cultural activities, the arts, maybe physical education, music, personal development. Those kinds of things already happen in immersive classrooms. In fact, this is one of the benefits of this model. English prime teachers already know how to teach math and English language arts in English. There's nothing new for them to have to learn. In fact, they'll have to plan less subjects to teach. French language arts, French immersion teachers already know how to teach French language arts in French and these other areas. So again, they'll have less planning to do and be able to focus their attention on those subject areas. So the roadmap to grade 12. We put this in to show what we envision as being the journey that these students, starting in kindergarten, would follow through to grade 12. All right? That the 50% program would continue from kindergarten to grade 5. That there would be 60% English, 40% French in grades 6 to 8, which gives, I guess, some opportunities at that level for other things to be done in English. The high school one, we didn't put a percentage on. There's a few reasons. One is we're moving our high schools more towards different pathways that interest students. So different opportunities for students. There would be basic courses that students would have to take to complete the program. But there's only one program. There's no dropping out of it.
Could you give us some examples, please?
Let me finish the presentation, okay? I would say, anyway, let me finish. This isn't a Q&A. I have to tell you that right off the bat. There's too many people here to do that. You'll all have an opportunity to share your thoughts when the microphone goes around, and we'll be making note of what your concerns are. That's a question you have. Things like, in terms of advanced opportunities, like co-op placements in French, or maybe a early entrance into university courses. There's all kinds of different things that can happen. Independent studies could happen. So The other reason why we're not being too specific about high school is, for heaven's sake, that's like 11 years away. Who knows what education is going to look like at the high school level in 11 years? Who knows?
What did you say? It doesn't know what 11 years is.
Who knows what technology we'll have at high school 11 years from now? Yeah, I have about as much patience as the minister does. So I would appreciate being able to get through my presentation, if you don't mind. You can think it stinks, that's up to you. That's fine. I appreciate everybody's opinion. But I think some people would like to know what the model is, so you'll be able to comment in an informed way on it. So, artificial intelligence is going to provide so many opportunities, even in here, that we don't know today. So, to define that one too carefully, I think it would be disingenuous. All right. Students currently enrolled in any program now will continue what their path was. So if your child's in grade 1 French immersion now, they will continue along that path till grade 12. There's no change for them. This is only for students in entering K1 next year. So our goal, as the minister said, for all students to graduate with a minimum conversational level of French, hopefully higher. All students, and we'll provide opportunities all along the way to strengthen student skills so that they do achieve higher than that conversational level. All students will be learning French at an earlier age, starting in kindergarten. Streaming will be addressed because there's one program, and all of the students will be learning together. Opportunities for enrichment and advanced learning in French will be provided throughout the 13 years of school. Personalized programming it's how we operate our education system today. It's not easy, but it's meeting the needs of individual students in the regular classroom, or in perhaps what we call grouping and regrouping, where students might be pulled out for an hour at a time to be working on a different level than the other kids in the class. And the course options and experiential learning for learners to maintain or advance their French language skills. Now, I want to talk to you about a couple of other things that we've heard people say this is rushed. Why are you rushing into this? And I'd like to, there's that comment over there. I'd like to respond to that. 2 years ago, Yvette, Finn, and I started this consultation. We've been hearing about this for 2 years, and we made recommendations over a year ago. And this program, this proposed model, responds to those recommendations, and in fact responds quite closely to them. And we've had a team of people since last spring at the department working on this and consulting with many people on it as well. So it's not like this has happened overnight, and we're not rushing to change the system K-12 all at once. As the minister said, it's a phased-in approach starting at kindergarten and grade 1. That's not rushed. And also, one of the commitments that the minister made.
This is not just K-1, this is my daughter's life.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's starting in K-1. I accept your apology. Thank you. She said she was sorry. So. Again, I'd like to get through the presentation. It's starting in kindergarten and grade 1. It is going to move through if this model goes forward, you're right. And we need that kind of feedback that we just received in a respectful way. So the model was designed based on a lot of things that have been heard over the last 2 years. And it wasn't that anybody actually proposed this particular model. Everything we heard, what are the issues, what are the challenges, what works well, what needs to change, all that information was put together into this model which we're consulting on. And that's what this is about today. So it's It's not. I don't believe it's rushed. I believe we've been taking the right amount of time and it's being well planned. And the minister made a commitment early on that if there are places, particularly if it's difficult to recruit enough teachers for the entire province, then that can be another year or two before that program gets in place in those places. Well, there's a plan in place to make it happen.
Minister's new.
So
So that means in some areas.
So I want to reiterate what that means, that if there are places, certainly recruiting French-speaking teachers is a problem. It's been a problem, and it's a problem across the country. We believe we can find most of the French immersion teachers we'll need. We're hoping to find all of them. But if we can't, then there's a 2-year phase-in for certain schools to get a plan to be able to do it. So I think what I'm going to do is end my presentation. There's some remarks I wanted to make that I think some people might have been interested in, but I realize it's very difficult for some to not, shut up their comments. So
You're messing with the child's future. That was more EAs.
I will say, as my closing, that I can't ask you to trust me. You don't know me. That's like saying I'm from the government and here to help you. You can trust me. I realize that doesn't work. But I can tell you that I have over 30 years of experience in education. I've seen this situation that's evolved over those years. I've seen inequity. I see how unfair it is. And I think we can do better. And if you don't trust me, you can trust the people I work with, because they are very committed to this. Do I care about children? You're darn right I do. I have grandchildren in the education system. I want what's best for them. And if you're hearing about some nefarious entity somewhere that's dreamed up this horrible program to ruin the lives of kids, look at me. I'm the lead on this one. I work with the team. We came up with this because we believe it's a good program. You may not agree. We want to hear from you in a respectful way. But it's not like somebody's out there trying to ruin the lives of kids. We're trying to make it better. So I really was hoping this would be a more collegial kind of evening. I guess it's shaping up to be more difficult than that.
When you're mocking this lady.
Well,
You're open to mocking people in this room.
so ma'am, that was a rude comment I made to you. I apologize. Okay, I apologize. What I'm trying to share with you is that good people have come up with this. We want to hear from you. If you hate it, tell us why.
I'd like to tell you, I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Well, excuse me, I'm going to give this back to Bruno because it's not a Q&A.
But
All right?
it should be.
It maybe should be, but it's
You know,
not.
but here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Respectfully, I tried to research before I came the number of students that have identified learning disabilities. The district doesn't have that anywhere on your website. 2014 was the last
You don't
data I
want
could
someone
find.
hijacking the
They
meeting.
don't have any of the information that you presented before this or tonight. And I don't really know how when you have those kids, what I want to see as a parent is hard data that says, when we roll this out in September, we are investing $2 million into EAs. We are bringing 20 more occupational therapists to the district. And I want to know where you're finding those people and what date they're starting in the district.
I really wish we had the time to be able to have questions and answers from a group this size, but we just don't. So we want to hear, that's a very real, that's a very real,
Excuse me. Have our voice to talk and do not be rude to me, because I am here. We're all here to make a point and to say something, and you're supposed to be listening to us as our representatives, and you're not.
That's you? Somebody, mic number 2.
May I speak? I spent several hours preparing something, and I think it's really important, and if I could just have, it's about 5 minutes long. Okay. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I do wish that the public consultations had taken place before major decisions were made. My name is Hannah Davidson, and I have been teaching in the French Immersion program for more than 25 years. Unfortunately, many changes to the program seem dependent on which political party is in power rather than what is best for our students. Ironically, it was the current government who switched the entry point, I believe, but I may have been corrected at my table, but I know with my MLA, he's a Tory, and he heard my thoughts about the immersion being put back to grade 1, which I believe is where it belongs. And I think that's a major reason that the Tories won the last election. I work at a rural school where for the last 2 years we've received government funding. Thank you to the government for that funding to enhance our immersion program. And I'm proud to report that most of our students are now speaking French in class to each other as well as to their teachers and enjoying a variety of French cultural activities. Our retention rate is also very high. Moreover, 50% of our graduates scored advanced on their oral proficiency exit interviews, which is well above the provincial average. Many of our students use French at their part-time jobs and tutor younger siblings in French. Moreover, several of our graduates from completely Anglophone families will be attending the University of Moncton next year. If we can make this many positive changes to the program in just 2 years, then we must have the opportunity to share our practices with other schools and continue to enhance our program. I would like to speak to the government's argument that the current French immersion program is elitist. Half of the students, in our rural Anglophone village are enrolled in immersion. Nobody is turned away from the program. Access to French immersion is free in New Brunswick. However, if the immersion program is removed, access to bilingualism for Anglophones in New Brunswick will only be available to families who can afford it. For example, exchange students in our district pay, on average, $20,000 to study in New Brunswick for a year to improve their English. There are not many students in New Brunswick who could afford a year abroad or even a summer program in Quebec. For example, in my school, we provide both breakfast and lunch to a significant number of students. So if there are immersion programs abolished, then our graduates are going to be at a real disadvantage compared to their peers from other Canadian provinces. Because for most of our students, forgoing a summer job to study in French, an intense program in Quebec, or a year abroad is simply not an option. There's a misconception that French immersion contributes to low literacy rates in New Brunswick. In fact, hear me out, immersion students do much better on their English language proficiency exams than non-immersion students. We've also heard from the government that most of immersion students do not score advanced in their oral proficiency exit interviews. This statistic is actually based on the total number of graduates in New Brunswick, many of whom do not even take the oral proficiency test. Moreover, according to David McFarland, who's administered the oral proficiency test for many years, a score of intermediate qualifies a person as functionally bilingual, which means able to perform his or her job in his or her second language. Most immersion graduates attain at least an intermediate plus. And one of my greatest joys as an educator is I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing my former students from Anglophone families who've become immersion teachers, and that's... The new model being proposed by the government is flawed for many reasons, not the least of which is that there are not enough French-speaking teachers to fill the new positions. In our district, most of our grade 1 FI teachers have had to transfer to the Francophone system because their jobs are being eliminated, and I fear that other Francophone teachers in the older grades are going to have to do the same. Most of the schools in our districts already have posts that fail to fill daily, and finding supply teachers who can speak French is next to impossible. So I'm not sure where we're going to find the teachers for the program. The government says that we have far too many students in our system who read below grade level in New Brunswick, and most of who are in the English program. If we want to help these struggling readers, we should not expect them to spend 40 to 60% of their day learning a second language. Most students meet the success in French immersion, and not all of them do, but that's okay. Last year, my son found that he was in over his head in pre-calculus class, and he withdrew from the course. I did not accuse his school of elitism for offering pre-calculus, or demand that they reinvent their entire math curriculum. But that seems to be what you're doing with French immersion. So let's keep working on improving both of our programs and helping everybody.
Thank you. Is there, I was going to say mic number 2, not mic number 3. So I'm going to just make a suggestion, okay? If you guys have anything to share right now, we could take a couple of minutes and do that. And then what we would like to do though, is still go through the World Cafe concept, because not everyone is comfortable going to the mic. There's pros and cons for the World Cafe. So for those of you that want to stay after and participate into the World Cafe, we still want to get a chance to hear fears, concerns, what you like, what you don't like, the key improvements you'd like to. So, there's someone at mic number 3, Matthew.
Hi everyone. My name is Candace Gallivan, and I am a kindergarten teacher. I have the best job in the world. I might cry when I'm talking because I love my job. I love my students and I love what I do, and I feel like things have gotten so out of control, and teachers don't know everything, okay? But we do love children, and when they come to us, we want to do what's best for them. And a lot of times, we don't get our foot either. So I don't want you to think that we don't see problems as well, and we don't want to be part of a solution as well, because we really, really do. But we don't want to sacrifice our students' experiences at school anymore. So let me talk to you about streaming. Streaming is real. It is very difficult, and there is a way to improve what that experience is to kids in English. I don't think that involves removing immersion, because those kids deserve what they need too. And in our system, unless they're in immersion, they're going to struggle to get enrichment. We can lie to you and tell you that we can provide it, but we can't currently. I'm a little nervous because we are not allowed to speak usually. I was told that as long as I was professional, I could speak. So that's what I'm trying to do. Their enrichment experience and what gives them what they need at school for a long time. And we went down a dangerous path when we came into full inclusion. And we decided at that time with the narrative, and the thing that I think we forgot is that inclusion in my mind is the exact opposite of everybody gets the same thing. It's everybody gets what they need. Yes. And one teacher in one room can't provide the enrichment and the resource and all of the things that all of the children need at the same time. They can't do it. And that's why teachers are leaving the profession in droves. And it's what we do because we love it, not because we get a free paycheck. And I just want to say, I don't think that people love to have the opportunity. Yes, they're talking about kids in grade 1 and they're talking about Dad Dicky, who's the dad of Dicky, and they want to speak some French, but they also need so much help. They need so much help in their own language. They're struggling with the English literacy. They're struggling with their math concepts. They need to not have this large 50% of the time put on top of them. They won't know what to do with it, some of them, and they will rebel, and they will not find that they have a place at school. So my suggestion is that, yes, streaming is not good. It's not. But we don't have to maybe fix something that parents feel is working for their children. What we need to look at is the English Prime program. Kindergarten is the most magical grade. When those kids come into school, it's their first experience being away from home and like growing on their own. And they fall so in love with their teachers and their friends. And that classroom community is so important to them. And if they're just going to be pushed from one class to another with teachers who do and don't, I take care of them at school. I am the person they come to. They need that. They're little, they're babies. And if they're just going to be here and there and everywhere and they don't have a family, yes, give them a little bit of French in kindergarten, but 50% of the time, please don't do it. They can't. It's not good. I have 11 students in my class this year with speech language difficulties. And we're going to throw another language at them. And I'm not going to barely have 90 minutes to teach them their literacy. And we've been working with this angle, which I think is like the most exciting thing that's come up in a long time. And we've been training for 2 years in it. We've had release time. We've read. We've studied. We've implemented. I'm in a pilot project now. And what's going to happen with that? Where I'm going to have I'm not going to have the time I need. I need to be able to pull my kids when they're playing in order, because they're not independent, they're little, I need to have them playing, I need to pull them to me in small, like, it's just going to become so chaotic. So please, don't fix the immersion program, fix the Prime program, look at what's being let them have an identity at school and be part of a group. Don't separate them all and have them flying in different directions. Give them a home for at least a year, please. Leave kindergarten alone. If you could leave kindergarten alone, at least. It's very important. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Just before we get to mic number 2, if I may, over here, they would like to have an opportunity to share. So I'm just going to pass the mic. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to thank everyone for their attendance here. I do want to show respect, but I understand that it's a tough topic. I'm a deaf individual that's here to talk about deaf children and deaf education and how this framework would affect them by adding extra pressures and more language. I respect that French is a priority, but for deaf children, it would only add extra complications because we don't have an LSQ, which would be French Sign Language interpreter. We don't have those staff to fill those voids, so it would impede deaf communication because we're already teaching deaf children English and ASL. So then to add LSQ, which would be French Sign Language, you're asking the child to now be 4 languages and have a number of interpreter staff with them for one child. So if I was the interpreter who was deaf with the child, and I have to work with a hearing interpreter, I don't know LSQ and I don't use French. I am a deaf individual who uses American Sign Language, not LSQ, which is French Sign Language. I grew up using Spanish, but understanding that sign language is our first language, it's our culture, it's who we are, And if you're talking about communication for the future, you need to make sure that someone is having the appropriate supports to get there. And deaf people's supports don't look like hearing people's supports. Understanding that non-deaf needs are different. That Quebec has an abundance of LSQ interpreters, but we don't. Do we even have any at all for the province? We have none in the school system right now. So thank you, I just wanted to make everything aware.
Hello, my name is Brenda Vale. I have this time for 3 minutes, so please, everyone wants to speak, so we'll cut until the end. I don't think this Conservative government had enough input when it decided to go against over 50% of New Brunswickers that have been supporting early French immersion for years. Thousands of children will be affected by this decision. We had information sessions like this 25 years ago when all but one member of our school board voted to eliminate early French immersion. The experts from Mount Allison University told parents after years of testing, early immersion students scored higher than middle or late immersion. Our premier at that time was Mr. Frank McKenna, and I thank God he listened to the science that showed learning a second language should begin at the earliest age possible. He also listened to the parents that put him in power, and we were able to keep our early French immersion. Over the past 25 years, thousands more children went through the program and became bilingual, including my 4 kids. Provincial and federal government jobs require you to be bilingual. People had to apply for unemployment insurance because their jobs are reclassified as bilingual positions. This province is promoted as the only bilingual province in Canada. Most jobs require you to be bilingual. We must make this goal as easy as possible for our children. Parents would like to have the freedom to choose early French immersion. I truly believe if Mr. Higgs doesn't change his mind, that this will go down in history as the biggest mistake a premier has ever made in this province. Our English kids have just as much right as their French kids to the provincial and federal government jobs. No one gave Mr. Higgs permission to take that opportunity away from them by gambling with their kids' future. If over 50% of parents and grandparents and thousands of hard-working, dedicated French immersion teachers all support this program, they have voices and deserve to be heard. A few weeks is not long enough. Mr. Higgs has been telling us during COVID to listen to the science, but he's not listening to the science or all the people that voted him into power. If our premier no longer wants to follow what New Brunswickers want, he has the freedom to step aside and let someone else take over. Early French immersion is offered in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, PEI, Quebec, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. Parents are not backing down, but would just like Mr. Higgs to back down and leave our early French immersion program alone, because it is not broken and is a very good program. I make mistakes every day. We all do. Being in power doesn't exempt you. Mistakes are good to keep us humble and show us our need for one another. Mr. Higgs, you don't have the right to make it more difficult for my grandchildren and thousands of other children to become bilingual than ought to be. Unfortunately, at this point, I see no other choice for parents but to start considering legal action. Legal action will be cheaper than having to pay for our kids and grandkids to go to university to become bilingual in a bilingual province. I am here tonight because I'm looking and expecting the brightest future possible for all of my precious grandchildren. Thank you for listening.
So I just noticed that some pictures of water, and this is a housekeeping advertisement, some pictures of waters are empty. I asked my colleagues in the back to see if the hotel could bring some. When they get in the room, I'm just going to ask by raising your hand if you need an extra pitcher of water on the table. So, oh, awesome. So make sure. Number 3, I think. And my apologies by 2, 3.
So I appreciate you have a very difficult job tonight, and I thank you for listening to what's being said. I also appreciate that it's very difficult to look at how to solve some of the challenges you see, particularly with underserved or different special needs or particular issues in the English side of the program. Because as a parent with a child in the immersion program, she's learning French and I have resources to help her in that. But I appreciate in this province we have a choice about which side to put my child in. I can see the tax that it puts on her mentally to learn French. And I can help her with everything else English-wise, math, all that stuff. But I can't help her with French. I'm Anglophone. I grew up in Alberta, and I married a New Brunswicker, and that's why I'm here. And so where I need help is with the French instruction. And I need more of that, not less. And also at the same time, if my child is struggling, or if I don't feel I have the resources to help them with French, I appreciate the system that I have the choice to move them out into English, which is easier for them because it's our language at home. And I also know their families that might, for them, English is their second or third language. They might appreciate having an option to make it easier as well. It's not to say that the points you're making aren't relevant, but I have to say as a parent, I'm not convinced yet. And I think the government needs to do more to make it clear what the problem is. I think aiming for conversational French sells us short. This is a bilingual province. I can appreciate it might be too difficult to aim for complete fluency in both languages for the entire province for all kids. But I don't think that means that we should stop, at least making it possible for those who want to get as far as they can in the education system that we have. Thank you.
Line number 2.
Hi, my name is Delta Beausejour. I'm a member of the Immersion East District Education Council. First, Minister Hogan, Deputy Minister McLaughlin, I see you back there listening intently, and I very much appreciate the time that you're taking to hear us, and the fact that you are actively listening to us. So thank you for that. I also want to take a moment to thank everybody who has shown up tonight. This is incredible. Looking around this room, it's amazing to see all of you come here and use the voice that we have to express pleasure, displeasure, or comments towards this proposed system. To the room. My first remarks are regarding how rushed this is. So you spoke to it not being rushed. However, we are here in January. We have a framework that we're going to implement in September. There's no way that we can implement this without being half-baked. It's rushed. It's clearly a political decision. And there's no time to plan for the staffing challenges this is going to present. And there's no time to develop a proper curriculum that we're going to need come September. This decision is also not data or evidence-based. The only evidence that we have, really, is that the former minister quoted the premier as telling the former deputy minister, "Data my ass." So we're not looking at any data. There's no data to look at. Our current program was implemented, I believe, 7 years ago. We haven't graduated anybody from that program. So if we don't have the data, how can we make an informed decision? To move on, because I don't want to, I could talk all day. This is creating unprecedented uncertainty with our school staff, with our teachers. It is driving teachers out the door. They're going directly to the Francophone system. Okay? In Anglophone East, we know that we're going to need a minimum of 15 new French teachers next year. That's just for K1. If we have to replace all the teachers that are moving to the French system, how are we going to find an additional 15 new teachers to fill those roles on top of the ones that walked out the door when all the other districts are facing the same challenges and looking for teachers that speak French? Simply put, the Atlantic provinces and beyond are just not graduating enough teachers. sorry. The government has to stop this farce right now before it affects our students. Now is the time to put the brakes on this. And I appreciate that there are issues with the system. French immersion is not perfect. There is streaming, that's also not perfect. But we need to take the time to make an evidence and database decision to fix the system. We don't need to tear the system down and create a new one. All we need to do is fix the streaming issues and fix the English crime issues. We also need to put the brakes on this and take a break to make sure that the curriculum is properly developed, if we're going to move forward with this, and that we can address the staffing issues that we're going to face. We don't need to move into this right now looking for not only to replace the teachers who we're losing, but to hire additional teachers for September. We need to stabilize the workforce that we have, start looking at hiring new teachers, and then implementing a new program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 3.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Nadine Fullerton, Woodrow is my maiden name. I grew up in Shediac, in a predominantly French community, and I was involved. Somebody, yeah, just needs to be tightened. Father, Francophone, Matthew Martin, UDM graduate. Mother, Anglophone, UNB graduate. Taught French immersion for 35 years. Both very passionate about me learning French. So, je suis fière d'avoir eu l'occasion d'apprendre la langue de mes ancêtres acadiens. Et ceci est grâce à mes 12 années en tant qu'étudiante dans le programme d'Immersion. Je suis intervenue en immersion à l'école primaire, puis à l'université, qui m'ont permis d'être où je suis aujourd'hui, personnellement et professionnellement. J'aime le français et j'aimerais que mes enfants aient aussi la chance d'apprendre la langue de nos ancêtres acadiens, même si l'on ne parle pas comme langue maternelle chez la maison. So there's a French language rights component here that's very concerning to me as an Acadian. I'm married in English predominantly, but my son is in kindergarten and going in grade 1 next year. And I am infuriated that he is going to not have that same opportunity. Now I'm thinking, should I send him to the French school?
Yep.
I don't want to put that pressure on them, because you know what? No, he's going to be behind, because I have been speaking French full-time with him. I guess shame on me, because I was thinking that French was going to be there for him, and that he was going to have the same opportunity. I'm part of the Canadian Construction Association. I'm part of the Canadian Construction Association, and because I'm bilingual, just as an example, a couple months ago, I'm on le conseil d'administration, puis je m'ai assis avec mes collègues québécois, parce que moi, je pouvais jaser en français avec eux, puis discuter les issues that needed to be discussed. So there's that part there. Of course, yes, was I a strong student? Yes, I was a strong student. So yeah, you're talking about elitism? Maybe, but why do we have to lower expectations for kids? Why do we have to change a program at the expense of the kids are thriving? No question, we gotta fix the system. New Brunswick is poised to have the best 10 years economically in its history, according to economists. But there's a huge caveat to that. There's a caveat that we have the proper services and that we recruit talent, not just across Canada, but globally. So by diluting our education system even further and lowering expectations, we're going to have a really tough time to recruit the immigrants that we need to fill the jobs so that we can have the services that we're so used to having at sign with this mic. So that we can have the services. And I believe in New Brunswick and I believe in the future of this province. But we need to have strong bilingualism, not just because it's part of our constitution, because it's a good thing culturally, and it's what sets us apart nationally and globally. The last thing that I want to say, because I echo all the comments the speakers that preceded me, but the last thing I want to say is, when it comes to university and recruiting teachers, why can't there be an expectation that a large number of them come out with a high level of French proficiency? Remove the fact that you get to choose whatever you want to teach and say, this is what we need. Are you prepared to go and learn that? I know there's teachers in here that may disagree with me, but there's a workforce, there's expectations from businesses, there's expectations from parents, and we need to have expectations from our teachers in terms of what needs to be taught in our school system. So I hope that talking to Deputy Minister, we had a very healthy debate, and I asked him if there's enough opposition that they would consider overturning this decision. So he said that, this is not set in stone apparently. So I hope that that is the case, because I feel that going back to concluding on the French language thing, as an Acadian, this is not a step in the right direction. And I can tell you, J. Louis Robichaud would be turning in his grave right now.
Thank you. Number 2.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Christina Robichaud, and despite my last name, I am Anglophone, so I am the opposite of the previous speaker, because I am Anglophone who married a proud Acadian. We both were educated, not necessarily in Canada, I don't want to use the word, but anyway, so we are Anglophone without the opportunity to go into the Francophone system. However, it's very important to us, and we are very passionate about having our children in French immersion. And I also am emotional, and when I see these parents in this room, the passion we have for our children and education, you should be proud that we're here fighting for a high level. So, my statements are very specific, and because I'm emotional, I did write it down, and I thought I wouldn't have to use it, but I will. So, Minister Hogan, you and I have discussed the concerns of the Maplehurst pilot. So this is an example of the system, and I'm living it, and my daughter is living it. So you personally acknowledge that the growing number of concerned parents warrants consultation. Maplehurst pilot parents were not consulted in advance. We did not give permission for our children to lose our immersion. Your advice, Minister Hogan, to me, the steps that were outlined was I was to address this with Principal Nowlin, and then if needed to go to the Superintendent, Mr. McLean. So, Principal Nowlin continues to state that she has not heard from many families, and therefore no public meeting will be held. This is not accurate, because parents have emailed and they have called, they have no responses. Superintendent McLean also publicly states that he has heard from families, or not heard from families. This is also not accurate. Many have called, repeatedly, with no response, including myself. So, both of them are not being truthful. So, can you imagine as a parent the frustrations that we have? So, they're not being truthful and they're avoiding the issues. So, single-handedly over the past 7 days, I have accumulated 145 signatures from Maplehurst families. This is as a result of my own work and not because I have access to the entire school. I don't have a forum in order to actually have a public discussion with all of the parents to gauge their thoughts about immersion. However, we demand to have that consultation. Okay, so it's not just the 10 families that have been reported. So, French immersion at Maplehurst was eliminated. It is not even at 50%. It is about 30% of our children's day in blended environments. So a non-speaking French student is in a French class with a grade 1 intake, a grade 3 intake, 5 and post-intensive. Who do you teach to? Okay? So it doesn't matter that there's movies playing at lunch in French class or music or announcements. This does not qualify as French immersion. And therefore, when Minister Hogan and Deputy Minister speak that the children are grandfathered, in Moncton, Maplehurst students are not. And why is that inequity allowed to exist? Every Moncton middle school French immersion student in grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8, besides Maplehurst, continue at a 70% French immersion level. So how do we send our grandfathered Maplehurst children to Bernice McNaughton and Harrison Tremble to continue in French immersion when they're at 30%? So, I have a principal who doesn't want to meet with parents and doesn't return calls, same with our superintendent. However, the Department of Education Council just this week unanimously stated that they are against French immersion program that's being implemented. So the superintendent is under them, and yet, you know, he doesn't return my calls. And then, of course, Principal Nowlin is avoiding the true scope and will not allow public consultation. So what I have here is an endless cycle of no accountability, no responsibility, and we have no results. Other than daily, our children are suffering. Okay, so this is the example of living this scenario, okay, in real life. So I guess, Minister Hogan, I ask you, will you support getting my voice at the table with the decision makers? All of the parents that I have, they're willing to attend. I need Principal Nowlin and the superintendent, and we need change, because it's not right.
Thank you. Do we have someone at line number 3?
The lady asked the question, is the minister going to answer the question?
There's
a lot of answers.
Minister Hogan, will you get the decision makers?
She asked the question, is it going to be answered?
Good point. My grade 6 immersion daughter is learning at a grade 1 level at Maplehurst.
So, a real problem, a super real problem, and only one is a meeting. We want to solve this. This is for our children, our future.
So,
a meeting is all we ask.
So what we could do is just, we still have some people at the mics.
You want to answer?
He asked a question, it should be answered. It's a substantive question. Sir.
So the purpose of this evening is to talk about our proposed French immersion program.
But it's not proposed if it's implemented.
It's not implemented.
Are you in Maplehurst?
That's a pilot program, and I will speak with the superintendent to see what we can do. Okay, because that falls under the guise of the district. So I understand.
Would you like to apologize again, perhaps? I don't think.
I can apologize to you. So the purpose of a pilot is just that, it's a pilot. So I think that we'll work with the district and see what we can do, move that forward. I understand that there's a number of parents that want to talk about that, so we'll try and facilitate something. However, the purpose of tonight is not to discuss the LLO pilots because there's some real successful ones.
Not this one.
So,
And we haven't had any other opportunity to speak.
I can hear just fine, thank you.
But
So,
listen, you can hear, but listen, please listen.
I am listening, but tonight's purpose is not to talk about that experience. Tonight we're looking.
Isn't the new program based on these pilots? Is it not?
No. Okay, then that's a whole different discussion. We're here tonight to talk about the proposed 50-50 English and French framework, and we're looking for feedback on that. This is entirely different. It's outside the scope of what we wanted to talk about tonight, and we'll facilitate a meeting with the district and address the parents.
Denying the fact that you're not piloting this framework somewhere in a school somewhere.
Can't hear, so please use
We're
the mic.
not piloting this currently. Now, the LLO will inform some of the instruction because there's some real, well, I never was saying that we did. So, the LLO pilots, there's some successes and there's some room for growth. And there's a feature at the back that has great success with it. So, we've already agreed.
But you have this on the table. And so it says grade kindergarten to 1, you have it laid out, and underneath it says current enrolled students will continue with what they're enrolled in. Maplehurst is in limbo.
Okay, as I said,
We're supposed to continue this kind of going through this. You put it on this piece of paper. We asked you a question, and we would like a meeting. We'd like to be acknowledged, and we would like answers.
yeah, I thought that I acknowledged, I apologize. And I said that we will facilitate a meeting with the district.
Well, we will all be making sure that happens.
That's fine.
We're not going anywhere.
So we've lost the immersion option. We have no option for French immersion. My daughter was in grade 1 French immersion. She's in grade 6 now. We presented some of the work she's doing this year to a grade 1 French immersion teacher, and some of it is stuff she would have learned in October of grade 1. She has 2 classes that are French. The other class is simultaneous French and English education, which when you did the presentation the other night, you said like that's not a good thing because kids might only listen to the English part instead of the French part. So you'd have half one, and it's teach separate things in French and English, right? So right now they have 1 class French that's way below the level that they're learning, that they're knowledgeable of. So they're actually not learning anything now. It's being taught stuff that they learned 5 years ago. The other classes, like I said, simultaneous. So like they don't have to listen to the French. We don't have options. There's no other schools we can put them into. We can't put them into the French school. We have no options, and people haven't been listening. So there's a lot of people here from Maplehurst tonight because this is our only way to get our voice heard. We haven't had any other options, and it's like really frustrating because it's so important. I'm an Anglophone, and I wish every day that I could speak French, but I didn't take French immersion, and I regret it deeply. But I'm at a job where it'd be really beneficial, and it's really limiting that I can't speak French. So I really want my kids to have that option. But right now, it's being completely denied and ignored. And that's why some of us maybe come off a little angry, but we're really, really frustrated. So I apologize.
Yeah, I can appreciate your frustration. As I said, we'll facilitate a meeting with the district so that we can come to a good conclusion here. It's not my job to tell the district how to make that happen, so.
You're kind of the boss, though, actually.
No. No, but I will commit to facilitating a meeting with the district and the interested parents. We've got members of the opposition here that will hold me accountable. So, taking notes. So,
There's people still on the mic that like to hear.
okay, I apologize. So are we good with that? Okay.
Again, thanks for sharing. So we have, who was number 3? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Kramers, and as you can hear when I talk, I'm French. I was not born in Canada, I was raised in Belgium, a trilingual country. So this is the story of my life, basically. We have the same issues over there, so we speak French, Flemish, the Dutch, and German. It's a struggle to learn. I manage in Dutch because I went through the equivalent of the PIT program. I wish I had immersion. So I have become an immersion teacher because my level in French, je peux vous assurer que j'ai les meilleures compétences possibles et une haute capacité à parler en français. Ma syntaxe, ma grammaire, mon orthographe, mon élocution sont irréprochables. So, I don't say that to brag. I mean, who cares? I mean, it's like, you don't know me. I'm saying this, I'm sharing this, because I struggle like you wouldn't believe to become an educator in this province. We are lacking teachers. We are on our knees. Everything you're talking about tonight will not happen without us. Either way, if we continue immersion, if we change it, it is not going to happen if you just don't have French teachers. And what you have in front of you is a very tired, yet committed and enthusiastic French teacher. If there is someone in the room who's convinced of the talent, like the super advantage it is to be bilingual, it's me. I owe my job to the fact that I can talk in this mic tonight. So, I am tired because we've been going through years of changes. Pilot programs, it's on us. New framework, it's on us. Challenges in composition between late and early immersion, it's on us. Yes, you're a French teacher, but you happen to teach in a rural school, but you will teach math or science, it's on us. We are stretched thin. You don't realize the miracles that are worked every day in our schools. So we can work. For example, I'm just going to speak for myself because I don't want to speak on behalf of my colleagues. I love my job. I teach in a rural school. Never, ever, ever, ever have I been covered by a French supply. Never. It never happened. Sometimes I'm not even covered. Good for you guys that I'm in a pretty good health. But it might not last long because I am stretched thin. I teach out of 14 different curriculum across 6 grades. What if now, okay, I've been working hard. I went out of my comfort zone. I reframed everything. I trained myself. Went to PL. So wonderful, wonderful. Like new initiatives. Some are great and do wonder. When I heard my colleague what they can do in a rural setting like us, in 2 years, this is just amazing. I wish we could do the same, but guess what? We don't have to do it. So, to sum it up, if people like me, who can speak English, French, some foreign language, I am Canadian now, why would I stay? If you were me, in such an unstable job where you never know what's going to fall on your head. Maybe it's a pandemic and you have to teach
full remote and then half remote, half the crew, then they mix up your late and early French immersions, then all of a sudden, some people show up that you've never seen before, but you will manage because you're a professional. I am tired of being a professional that's pushed outside of their comfort zone. And it's because no one wants me to be outside of my comfort zone. It's the situation. This is the design we create. It's like, you invite everyone tonight, and there is not a single beer in the fridge. Like, what's In other words, if there is not people like me, and I have not been recruited aboard, which is one of our possible solutions, but you have to understand that this is such a challenge to get that golden certificate to teach, so you land a stable job in which you devote all of your energy and time and passion, and that just to be shuffled. I feel like those tumbleweeds in the wind. It's like, ooh, what's going to happen next year? Who knows? And then you see those job proposals, like propositions that pay more elsewhere, because guess what? I'm bilingual. Good for me. But I wish it would be the same for my kids. I wish it would be the same for your kids. But without people like me. So it would not happen. So you've asked for feedback. We are stretched thin. There is not enough of us. If too many of us are so disgusted that they leave the table, you break the system. And when you want to put the pieces of the broken vase back together, you're missing some. And we are not in a position where we can recruit. Those teachers, as numbers have said, are not going to fall from the sky. And believe me, I don't know many people who will undergo the same ordeal, I'm using that word, to get a certification here. So that's the elephant in the room. You want a program, whatever it is, you need people. Please keep us. Make us safe. We want to do it. We already do it. We can make it better, but you will not be able to do it without us. So this is not a menace. This is a tired person speaking. And I also feel very sad for our admins and managers who go to the greatest possible length to recruit people. There is not any to be had. There is not. We do not replace the people who are going. We need to compromise on the quality of the language. This is not what you want for your kids. This is not. You don't want your kids to spend 50% of the time with someone who's going to say, and this person is going to be pushed outside of their comfort zone. They will not be able to speak the level they would want to speak with the kids. And if you know that it's good to start early, and everyone seems to know it, new program, old program, the earlier the better, you need quality models. We do not have enough, although we try. There is not enough teachers. There is not enough French teachers. Let's not lose the ones we have. So sorry, I'm a bit tired, so but thank you for listening.
Merci, thank you. Mic number 2.
Merci beaucoup. Caroline, chapeau. Tu es excellente, tu as toujours été excellente, puis moi je te garde, je suis fleur ce soir. Mon nom est Charlene Guénaud, native de Spagan, au nord du Nouveau-Brunswick. 34 years in the education system, retired 2020 with perfect vision. So, my last job as an educator, I've taught, by the way, English as a second language at the baccalaureate level as well, international baccalaureate. And I taught French immersion for the other half of my career, ended my career at Anglophone School District as the former subject coordinator in charge of French immersion and all FSL programs from 6 to 12. Okay? So I think I may have a little bit of insight on this. And I am here, Mr. Hogan, to give you feedback on the program. I have respected the 3 questions or 5 questions that you have, so bear with me. I will read through them and maybe ad lib in between. So what are the key areas of improvement for the 50-50 program? As Carolyn mentioned, teacher retention and recruitment. That is number 1 on the list. So make no mistake, I used to hire teachers. I have teachers in this room, retired teachers, teachers who are still here, who are very passionate, and we know what that job entitles. And thank you, by the way, to all the teachers who showed up tonight. Thank you. So my question is, have school districts been surveyed to find out how many teachers have left since the news of the abolition of immersion came out? So, gone to Francophone districts, left the province, gone on sick leave, because some of them are not here tonight because they are on sick leave due to the many changes this province has been through since, what date, Dorothy? I forget. 2008. Okay? I have a table of experts with me, retired experts, and I'm not joking. According to the report on second language learning, the 2021 report, there is a critical shortage of qualified French-speaking teachers to adequately staff current second language programs. Every Anglophone school district in the province reported significant difficulties in recruiting and retaining strong French-speaking teachers. Page 36, by the way. This same report on second language learning 2021 also states that decades of constantly changing plans and strategies have created significant instability in the system. That's on page 20. However, this government is plowing ahead, creating yet more instability, anxiety, and burnout. Teachers are losing faith in their leaders and moving away or moving to Francophone districts, and I do not blame them. After all the money spent in each Anglophone district to recruit and train teachers, because we do get federal money to train teachers, and we go beyond to train people in second language practices. Then, to hear that they're moving out of our district to Francophone districts, it hurts, but I can't blame them. I never could blame them for that. Okay? So we lose them. That is unacceptable. What is being done to keep them, the retention? I don't know. Number 2, according to Dr. Joseph Dix's 6 pillars of successful second language programs, all the following elements are essential to maximize effectiveness. A, frequency. So that contact occurs regularly, daily if possible. The new program offers regularity only in one competency, the oral language. B, intensity. The contact lasts all day long if possible, and the new program only offers 50%. At the elementary level, we have 90% and more if possible, if our specialists can speak the language. Extensiveness. Classes extend over many weeks, months, and years. The sooner one begins, the more extensive the exposure can be. And that is the truth. I like this. This is the only thing I find positive in this 50-50 model, is that the English prime will start earlier. However, they don't have a choice. That's wrong. So the new program decreases the extensiveness much more than the immersion program does. There is no extensiveness in reading and writing or in any other subject, because no other subjects will be taught, from my understanding, in French, whereas the immersion program, our base subjects are all taught in French. And by the way, math in French works. There is no research that proves that students do better in math when it's taught in English. And don't try to counter me on that. Meaningful communication is the 4th pillar. Learners have something interesting and important to watch, to listen to, read about, speak about, and write about in all base subjects. The new program does not cover reading and writing, nor will it cover any other subject in French, where Immersion does. Fifth pillar, motivation. Motivated learners perceive the language being learned as important and useful, and view bilingualism, multilingualism as a positive personal achievement. How can this new program be considered useful if it sets such low expectations? Teaching effectiveness. Successful teachers are highly proficient in the language, knowledgeable about and appreciative of the culture, possess excellent teaching skills generally, as well as the specific knowledge and skills for teaching in their second language setting. That's one of the biggest pillars, teacher effectiveness. This new program certainly will not graduate any future highly proficient teachers in second language. Many of our present Immersion teachers were successful Immersion students. The language competency criteria is B2, the B2 level, so advanced plus right now for teachers at the minimum. This program, the minimum is B1, intermediate level. So this 50-50 program limits opportunities for future graduates. How can this new program graduate students strong enough to attend a French university? You may ask. Many of our graduate students attend not only U of M, l'Université Sherbrooke-Jean. Many of them. Pardon? Ottawa, l'Université d'Ottawa, Laval, en Amérique. How can this new program offer everything a career professional needs to function at a highly effective bilingual, for example, medical specialist, lawyer, teacher, accountant, police officer, administrator, researcher, IT specialist, politician, and more? How can we do that? Because we do have politicians that are perfectly bilingual, right? Robin, right? Rob McKee? Okay. Consultation with experts is necessary. Who did the department consult? What are their credentials? The FSL experts and Immersion teachers who have voiced their concerns do not support this new program. Many of them. l'ACPI, if you don't know this acronym, it stands for l'Association canadienne des professeurs d'immersion du Canada. So, the Immersion professionals of Canada. We are, or I was part of it, no longer. This community of experts and educators have written many open letters and have invited the Department of Ed to be consulted. However, they have yet to receive a call or an invitation. Training of teachers. When are teachers expected to be trained for this? Resources must come out in time for teacher training, as you know, my fellow teachers. The curriculum should be out, but it's not. When is it supposed to surface? Who will be training teachers? Training teachers that you have is one thing. When there are none, and recruitment is crucial, training takes a back seat. If going abroad to recruit, this becomes difficult as working visas may take months to acquire. And there are many more variables to consider as well. Cost of moving, getting a mortgage or rental, when signing a contract timeline is not observed. Training, all of this is crucial. I know, I've recruited people from other countries. And of maybe 15 that I've interviewed in the past, maybe one was ready on time for September. The cost, nobody's mentioned cost yet. How much is this new implementation going to cost? Let's not forget how much each government has spent to change entry points. What about over the next 12 years? The FSL approach, what FSL approach will be used? The department should be able to answer this question now. I have the curriculum already on their website. I see nothing of that. The 50-50 program was abandoned in this province. What makes you think it will work this time? Families moving in from other provinces. All the other provinces are offering Immersion. They all are. They're coming in here, moving here, thinking this is the greatest province to live in, New Brunswick, and it is a jewel. We are special. I think that. I know that. and they're coming in to expect immersion. How are they going to do this? Put them in a 50-50 program so they can twiddle their thumbs and help the teacher? I'm sorry. Immersion is not the scapegoat here. This program is not inclusive. It cannot take care of all levels of learners. Where will you find more resource teachers who are specialized in French? There is a shortage of them right now. How will this need be met? Do we eliminate the International Baccalaureate program because only 30% of students are enrolled in it? The baccalaureate program is a true definition of streaming, as students must obtain a certain average to be placed in these classes. And you know that. I cringe when I hear the word streaming. I had a politician tell me that we had a problem with streamers. The problem is not streamers, the problem is the English prime, where these kids need the attention they need. The only advantage, I'll say it again, is that the 50-50 program starts earlier for English prime students. But as I heard that grade 1 teacher give a very emotional account of what she's living right now and who the children are in her class, 11 of them on PLPs, how are they going to learn French on top of everything else they have to do? And she is not the only class like that. So, parents choose to have their children in the programs that they want, and registration has always been in immersion for whoever wanted it. Okay? It is not streaming. They are choosing the program. It may create a streaming effect, but guys, this is society. This is society. You're not going to put everybody in a cookie-cutter situation and expect everybody to learn. When I hear that, I think of the one-room schoolhouse that my mother used to go to. So, in the pilot project, Maplehurst in particular, these kids that are presently at that school who are supposed to be in immersion, and Mr. Hogan, you told us that all immersion students will be able to continue in immersion right through to grade 12. They are not having immersion right now at that school. 20% or 30% is not immersion. What I saw on the YouTube video as teachers translate back and forth, that is not immersion. That is not how you learn a second language. I'll be done in a minute. So my recommendations, the intensive French program for English Prime should be the program under scrutiny. This is the program that needs the attention, where again, parents do not have a choice come grade 5, because in grade 5 they're all forced to go into intensive French. There can be modifications there, and the approach is good. But again, the format needs to be desired. Where reading and writing data shows students are not meeting targets. That's the English Prime. They're not meeting reading and writing targets. Why is this not addressed? We need money spent on more literacy interventions, mental health interventions, and much more. For example, more English Prime teachers have been hired, and I just learned of this today, by a major private company in New Brunswick, which will remain anonymous right now, in certain schools with low literacy rates to create smaller classrooms and give struggling students the opportunity to meet their goals. Of course, this has made a major difference in those children's scores. The government should be doing the same thing. There is proof of this. Smaller classrooms, more attention, instead of standing all and finally, support staff such as psychologists, social workers in the education system are overworked, having too many schools to work with,
thus creating a backlog of sometimes more than a year before a student gets a psych ed assessment. The English Prime needs money to have their needs met, not ignored. Thank you very much.
Charlene, we couldn't have planned this any better. I'm a prime grade 1 teacher. The woman that spoke before was a kindergarten. She did her plea for kindergarten. I'll do a plea for grade 1. Agreed. We need help in prime K and 1. I had the opportunity to teach in French. I could teach in French. I was very close to teaching in French, but I chose that I wanted to teach in English. I chose that because I saw that there was a need. There is a need. There still is a need. I said to myself, if I could teach every kid how to read in grade 1 and start them on their path, they would be on their way. I've taught in many different situations. I've taught adults, I've taught middle school, I am a grade 1 teacher at this time. I haven't taught high school yet. When a kid or an adult can't read, it affects everything in their lives. It affects their self-confidence, their identity, it affects everything. We haven't spoken tonight about if you take 50% of my English time away. I teach reading. A big component of reading is being able to speak in English. You need to speak well in English to be able to read well in English. You take that 50% away from me, and those kids are not speaking enough in English to be able to read in English. We haven't talked about play exploration. Our kids are coming into us not knowing how to play. Okay? In kindergarten, they set them up so that they have started that. They still need work on that in grade 1. That's where we see negotiation skills. That's where we see critical thinking skills. That's where we see kids help each other. That's where we see struggling students shine. You will be taking their way of shining away from them if you require them to speak in a different language during that time. This framework, yes, I know how to teach math and I know how to teach reading. If you take away 50% of my time for kids to be able to speak, you will take away my time to be able to teach them to read. They need to learn how to read. Yes, there is a stream, we call it a streaming problem, or whatever you want to say. Prime English, there are issues. We need to fix those issues. Do not take away their time to be able to speak. It's very important. We heard tonight that they will graduate with a minimum level in English and French. When you take away their time to be able to speak in English, for these kids who struggle to function in English, you will make them a minimal speaker in both of those. In English, they won't be able to come up here. They will not be able to advocate for themselves. They need to be able to do that. That is a life skill. That is what we are doing today. We are using our voices to advocate for ourselves. These kids right now in my class, grade 1, are learning to advocate for themselves so that they can meet their needs, because they are going to need to do that the rest of their lives. We want that. Those are our kids. Last point for me today. It's gone. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Kristen Kalukian. I'm one of the many people who moved here from out of province. I moved here from Ontario about a year and a half ago. Je suis complètement fière d'être un néo-brunswickoise et chaque jour je fais mon mieux de parler français mieux, de pratiquer avec tout le monde parce que ça compte pour moi. Le bilinguisme compte pour moi, le biculturalisme compte pour moi. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai déménagé ici avec ma famille. As you can tell, I'm still working on it, but I'm doing my best. I moved here with my daughter, who is in Immersion at school, and I want to take a moment to thank every teacher who is here tonight. You are all miracle workers. Thank you so much. I also care enough about our education system in New Brunswick that I joined the District Education Council. But I'd like to talk to you today in my role as an academic. I'm a political scientist. Mr. McLaughlin, I read your report. And it's short on hard data. And it's long on anecdote. There are a whole lot of quotes taken out of context. Rigorous research for a living, it doesn't pass muster with me. And I say that with great respect. Not everyone is a researcher, but we have many universities in this province where people who would gladly have served as a research assistant to help you write a more rigorous paper. Moreover, I think every teacher in this room can back me up on the fact that words have meanings. Immersion means what it means. It doesn't mean what you want it to mean in a certain context. Okay? We expect our children, our students, to be able to learn the definitions of words, and I think we need to set an example for them at the highest levels of government. But more importantly than that, I want to talk about the political process here that your government has engaged in. It's not acceptable to have consultations after you've made a decision. Until this very moment, and they come up here almost shaking because they're so angry about it. That's not okay. It's also not okay to be introducing this sort of a policy change that will literally upend the entire Anglophone education system, smack dab in between electoral cycles. The time when you propose a monumental change like this is before an election so that the people of your province, of our province, have a voice and have a say in terms of whether that policy choice makes sense for them. Now, I may be new to New Brunswick, but it doesn't take much to tell that your party doesn't have a lot of trust from the public when it comes to anything to do with francophone and bilingual issues. Trust in your government's goodwill when proposals like this are made. It seems like just one more way to potentially undermine bilingualism in this province. It's unacceptable, and I think the only honorable thing to do once you've heard all of the voices in this room and all over the province is no constituency for this policy change. There is simply no portion of New Brunswickers who believe that you're doing the right thing. None of them. On the District Education Council, we hear from parents who are absolutely irate and fuming mad. We hear from teachers who have no idea what they're going to do with yet another change to French immersion. And we hear, frankly, I hear, as a newcomer here, from parents who are ready to up and move out of New Brunswick because their kids had a better French immersion education somewhere else because at least they could count on it being there next year. So, I suspect that the reason you've introduced this policy now is that you're hoping to get it in under the wire so that come election time, people have forgotten about this or moved on. That's not going to happen. First of all, everyone in this room is going to call or email their MLA tomorrow, fuming mad, and let them know exactly how they feel. And every person in this room is going to get more involved with politics because they see that politics is precisely what has gotten us to this moment. So in a way, you sort of have about favor. I bet the voting rate will go up next time. But no one will have forgotten this by the next election. My sincere advice to you, withdraw this proposal now. If you want to introduce a fully baked proposal in time for the next election, for us to all consider, I think we would all welcome the opportunity to consider it. That can be improved upon without upending the system, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And since you seem to be a government that is bragging about surpluses all the time, I would like you to start throwing some of those surpluses toward the education system. Not to mention healthcare. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number three? Mike number three?
Thank you. My name is Matt Sammons. I have 4 kids in the Anglophone system. I moved here from Ontario as well 4.5 years ago. And we moved here for all the wonderful things that it has to offer. And it's proven true. It's a beautiful province with wonderful people. And I love both cultures, the English and the French. It's fabulous. I wish I had the language, but I think I'm too long in the tooth to learn it. But that doesn't mean my kids can't all get it. Believe it or not, I am. I've tried. But bottom line is I've got kids who came here, 3 of them in middle school when they came. Well, one was just a little bit before that. And each of them was about 2 years ahead in the system from Ontario to here. So our system was that far behind.
Yes.
And we're an Anglophone province, at least in the southern part, the GTA. Go north, it's a little more French. But it's all Anglophone. We take it because we want the language, we respect the culture, love the culture, and it's great to have multiple languages you can get them. So that was a disappointment. I found that my youngest son, he took a year of French immersion in his first year, and he struggled. I'd ask him at the end of the year, and I have regular meetings with the teacher, how did you do? He says, Dad, I didn't understand a word that teacher said. But she liked my smile, and she always thought I knew what she was talking about because I nod. It doesn't work for some kids. We got to realize that French isn't the fix-all for all children. What I think is wonderful, I love the government's goal here. See if we can get every child bilingual. Fantastic. It's just not reality, I hate to say. There are some children who struggle a lot in English. They struggle in math and other things. They need resources to help them in those things. I agree with that one teacher who said, I'm going to lose half my day to teach these kids to read English. They can't even read English, so that's a serious problem. I think the system, French immersion, works, but it's a systemic failure in this province. I've assessed this closely. I sit on the PSSC at Sunny Brae. I'm the chair of the PSSC at Moncton High School. I've gotten to know so many teachers. I know so many administrators, and they're passionate about our kids. And I love that. That's where it starts. And thank you all for those of you who are academics or teachers and that, because you're making a difference. But the system is failing. There's a systemic failure in this province, and there shouldn't be. We've got, 800 or so thousand people? A small province, it's like turning a business. You can't turn a big business quickly, but you can turn a small one. And this is a small province with unbelievable potential, but we're dropping the ball. We're absolutely failing. And the French immersion system, I look at my 3 girls who were in it, they're not being challenged to the level they should be. They're being left behind a little bit because of a system that isn't set up to push the academic kids to a higher level. So I don't think this change will only hurt. I think it could help some younger kids. I think it could dramatically hurt some of them too, who just aren't ready to learn a second language. I do think those kids need additional things, more practical courses, maybe as time goes on, more trades courses, things that society needs. All kids aren't academics, and it's, we look at streaming and say there's such a stigma to it. Streaming's not necessarily a bad thing. There are kids who are going to be very high academics. There are going to be other kids who are fabulous using their hands and doing things. So they've got to go in different systems. Going to work with that and say, what can we do to make both those kids work? What scares me about my kids now going through the system here, to be blunt, I've read a lot of articles on it, and our province is getting known to put kids into university that are subpar, that aren't at the level they should be relative to the Ontarios, the BCs, and Albertas. There's no excuse for that. Many of them, I'm sure, survived, but they had a culture shock in year one, thinking they were the top of their class in high school, and all of a sudden are struggling like heck to pass in university. We're failing those kids, and we can't do it. We've got to push hard to improve French immersion. We've got to add IB as more options for kids. I brought it up to my school. They don't have it there. I'm not blaming them, but the system has to figure that out. Why isn't it available at a central school, and kids who really want that higher level of education should be shipped there? We want to have a mess of top academics. We want to have a mess of top kids that are hands-on, trade kind of kids. We want everything. But we have, and I think we have to provide the opportunities in the French language. But I couldn't do it in high school. I didn't have French immersion. I took it in just as courses. And the quickest course, I love you French, but the quickest course I wanted to drop was French because I couldn't do it. I'm a very left-brained person. I think French is more a right-brain trait. And there's a lot of people like that, who just who will struggle with the language. So why force it on them when it's not necessary? They can take courses, absolutely. I think they should be taking courses. We're a bilingual province, we should try and learn the language. But let's fix what we've got before making a radical shift. Because right now it's failing. The system's failing. Teachers are struggling. Admins are struggling. We don't have enough EAs. We don't have enough teachers. Let's fix this before we make a big shift. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jade. I moved here also from Ontario 2 years ago. I did take French immersion, not immersion, but like French classes from kindergarten all the way up, and I am not bilingual at all. However, I moved here with the assumption that my 4-year-old going into kindergarten next year would be able to go into a French immersion program. Why? Because she's smart. Because she's not going to be challenged enough in the English program. Being able to count to 5 by kindergarten in kindergarten right now in New Brunswick, that is what you need to be able to do by Christmas. My child can count to 100. So I think that she could do well in French. However, on the other side of that, I have a little boy who has Down syndrome. He's taking kindergarten again this year because he needed the extra support. In Ontario, he would have gotten 2 years of kindergarten. In New Brunswick, he got 1. So I fought for him to have 2. Now he's missed out on this choice to do English or French immersion. My child maybe one day could speak French.
Right now, he thinks it's funny to say bonjour. He can't read yet. He hardly knows all of his ABCs. He has an EA all day long, who is from another country. He's bilingual in English and Romanian, and his other EA is English speaking. So when I asked the school this week, when you guys started all these proposals of stuff and it all came out, and it was very vague as to what you were going to do with all of our special needs students. The students that can't do French all the way through. The students that at 50% of their day in French, when they start to act out, when there's behaviors, when their EAs who do not speak French can't help them learn with a teacher who is also struggling to speak French. My principal, who's incredible, I have a wonderful team at his school, they are just amazing, emailed me back and said, it's lucky he's in an ILP, we'll be able to put him in another room. He'll work with his EA while his peers work in French. That's about what we've got right now because we know as much as you do, Jake. And I said, so you're going to segregate my child even further? He has Down syndrome. He is going to need special time. He's got to go out of the classroom. I'm fully aware of that. But for my child to be a functioning person in this society, at a minimum, he has to be able to read. He has to be able to read a bus sign so he knows where he's going. He has to be able to count so that when he goes to pay for something at a store, he knows how much money he's giving the lady. But at 50% of French, he's neither going to get enough English or enough French to function as a person in this society. And as you know, Minister, I'm pretty sure you should as a person who works in education, 26% of this province has special needs. There are not enough EAs, there is not enough OT, there is not enough physio. I put him on the list for psychoeducational last year. He won't get it till he's in grade 3 or 4. By that point, his brain has already totally changed from when it needed it. There are multiple students in this school who will never advocate for them. So now you're going to propose this. You have no plans for these special needs kids, except for more segregation in a province that claims to be totally inclusive. And I can say that as I was also behavior intervention mentor in your Anglophone stream last year, and I quit. And do you know why I quit? Because your EAs are not trained properly. There aren't enough of them. Half of them can't help the way that they need to. Your teachers aren't trained in behavior stuff. They aren't told that they need to listen to us properly. So I can walk into a classroom and give you a million different things to help you, but if you don't have those supports in your classrooms to do it properly, you're not going to be able to. And now you want these overworked, overtired teachers who already don't have enough resources to also speak in a different language 50% of the day? Sir, it's ridiculous. It is half-baked. It doesn't make any sense. So unless you can come out with an entire framework that specifies how you're going to support your special needs students without segregating them, how you're going to support your students who deserve that French immersion program, and how you're going to help the kids in the middle who, hey, at grade 6, maybe decide they want to take French. You can't do this. It's ridiculous. And everyone in this room is against it. And I guarantee you, most people who didn't come tonight or came to a different city's thing is the exact same thing you're facing there too. So I implore you, go back, speak to the professionals, get some real data, maybe get some help with the special needs programming, and then come back to us. But English Prime should be there. It should be a choice for all parents. We live in Canada. Every other province functions on English except for Quebec and here. Yes, French is important. I believe it's important. My husband is bilingual in a different language. Different languages are great. But for the most part, you're going to learn and speak in English. So let's work on that. So we have reading scores that are proper. So we have writing scores that are proper. And so that our kids don't end up in university in other provinces going to school and going, what the heck am I learning? Because I'm 3 years behind every other province in the country. Makes zero sense. So let's fix that before we start upending everything. And maybe hire some teachers, because I can tell you right now, I have multiple friends who are French teachers in Ontario, and not one of them will come here. You, sir, do not pay enough, your system changes constantly, and you do not offer enough supports or training. So let's fix that, and then let's talk.
Thank you. Just before we get to, we have someone at mic number 2, someone at mic number 3. We see people leaving, so just before, it's 9:30, so we're still going to be here taking a few more comments. But just to change the slide, so for those of you that we'll have 2 virtual World Café sessions on the 31st and February 2nd. So on the website, you can go in, you can sign in. There's also a feedback on your tables that you can also, we call it the parking lot. So if you want to go in, express a comment if you haven't had a chance to go to the mic. There's also the email consultation.eecd.edpa@gd.ca if you want to send comments, questions. That email also here. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that before they started to leave. I think it was number 2. Okay. And Matthew, I think it's working, but it might be just a little bit too high. Give it a try. Just get closer to it.
I don't want to.
We'll help you.
I no longer have children in the school system, and I'm very thankful for that because both my adult children went through the French Immersion program. My son started in grade 1, and my daughter started in grade 3, so both parties do screw with the system. But that being said, they both came out fluently bilingual. They both had advanced standing, and my son was dyslexic. I had the odd tutor for math because you can learn math in French, even if you're dyslexic. But he had a special education program every year. There was never the resources available, and if they weren't available in French Immersion, they certainly weren't going to be available in the English program, so we kept him in French Immersion. He graduated from Moncton High. He uses French every single day. He works in the trade, and everybody he works with at this moment, and the company he works with, are Francophone. And they always comment that his French is the best. My daughter started in grade 3, and she went through to grade 12 as well, and got advanced standing, and now she's in her 3rd year of university. And she takes a French course every semester because I beg her to, so she won't lose her French. And her French is strong, it's just that she wants to take other things. That being said, I'm a retired public servant as well. I'm going to jump all over the place here because it is past my bedtime. But this is important enough for me to come out tonight. But one thing I wanted to say, I'm a retired public servant for 34 years, federal public servant, and I mentored many younger public servants. And one thing I always reminded them of is who was paying their salaries. The taxpayers were paying their salaries. So Minister Hogan, I was your class president in 1984. You probably don't remember me. I was a little longer and a little thinner, but I'm still just as yappy. Over there, so that being said, I really did not like the tone, right? People come here, they're invested in this. You didn't have a room that was big enough. The cookies are good, but I don't know. Okay? But you didn't have a room that was big enough. You're not organized. You made a decision before you got the consultation. So our newly arrived New Brunswicker who pointed that out, thank you very much for pointing that out. But one thing I always reminded my fellow public servants was who we worked for. And I think it was very disingenuous of you to talk about respect and use the word disingenuous when we were being paid that earlier in the evening. I'm also, as I age, like a lot of people in this room, I'm going to see the doctor more. I have a doctor. If you think doctors and other medical people are going to move here with no French immersion, you're living in an alternate reality. The program is imperfect. No program is perfect. But one of the challenges I saw, and a lot of other parents saw who had children, especially in the later years of French immersion, in high school, was the lack of courses in college prep. And many students had to drop out because they couldn't get the necessary courses so they could go to university. So that's why they were dropping out of the French Immersion and not completing the French Immersion program. And that is something that's never been And we had a gentleman earlier talk about from the Education Council, and I thank you for being on those councils because I was on the parents' committees and all those things through the years. Our biggest issue was getting a crosswalk and things like that. But, he talked about this is not the time. We've had the 2 and almost 3 most disruptive years in our entire province's history. So our education, this is not the time. Okay, it is not the time. I have a lot of friends who are retired teachers. They can work every single day because teachers are burnt out, they're leaving the profession, and they're ending up in French immersion or French-based classrooms where they can't teach the language because those teachers are just as burnt out. And that's just about it. Thank you.
And I'll make sure to share your comments about the cookies to the hotel staff. Mic number 3, and then we have someone at mic number 2. Mic number 3.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a second and thank the minister as well as the deputy minister and his staff for being here tonight. I want to thank you all very much for being here tonight because this really sends a message as well. My name is Chris Collins. I'm with Canadian Parents for French. And I just wanted to be very quick, and I wanted to speak after the parents had their opportunity to talk tonight. And what I wanted to say is call your MLA. If you live in a red riding, call the one next door in a blue riding. I also want to, I can't emphasize that. They need to have their phones ringing. Have your friends call them, have your parents call them, your kids' grandparents. Very important. As an electorate, you need to show that it's important and this will have an effect on the future of their government if they don't reverse this decision. As a former politician, I've sat on both sides of the Legislative Assembly, and I just wanted to single one elected official out tonight, and that's Sherry Wilson, who's a Conservative MLA, and she's the only Conservative MLA that I saw here tonight, so I think that that's very courageous for her to be here, and I wanted to point that out. And the last thing I want to do is say to you, call your MLA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
Okay, first I want to apologize to the person on the table, so I apologize to the speakers up front. I just get very passionate and I get very annoyed when things aren't fair. Second, I'm not a public speaker, I get very nervous. And I'm dyslexic and I have a seizure, so bear with me. So, being a person who grew up here all my life, I went to school from 85, graduated 98. I discovered at adulthood that I'm severely dyslexic. So all through school, I cannot read well. I can barely speak well certain times. Sorry, very emotional. I originally wasn't going to come up here and talk about this. But people keep thinking that this bilingualism has something to do with dyslexia. It does not. It has nothing to do with it. Dyslexia is how your brain works, how it functions, how it learns, not the language you're learning. All right? So we need to deal with the support system from the get-go on this. Stop putting a stigma to it that it's bad to be dyslexic. It's bad to be autistic. I have an autistic son that I have to tell weekly, you're not bad. You're not horrible. You just think differently. You work differently. And we need to work with them as well as us. Everybody has to work together to figure out a problem. We don't have to swim switch the whole system for people that are ADHD, which I am also, and autistic, or whatever. We have to be able to work together. With that said, this picking on the French immersion program is people trying to divert the real issues of lack of teachers of English or French, lack of schools, lack of TAs, lack of everything at the beginning to learn how to deal with ADHD, autism. All those issues should be started right before the kid goes into kindergarten. This should be all evaluated. So that way there, when the kid goes in there, they have an idea of what level they're going to be able to learn at, how they're going to learn, how they're going to understand. Because I couldn't understand that, how it was taught. If I was taught how math was taught now, I would have a better understanding. I'd still suck at it, but I would have a better understanding with it. I would not have to be using my fingers to count to 2 when I am 42 years old. Because I was taught you had to memorize things. When you're ADHD and dyslexic, memorization is a big issue. So everybody's picking on this French system, which, yes, there's problems, but for the most part, it's been scientifically studied and proven. The earlier you start any type of language, they're going to understand it and comprehend it. The further they go, and the longer it goes. When I was concerned, when I was pregnant with my son, I asked him about the language. I was like, okay, is he going to get more confused if we teach both languages? My husband is bilingual. He's a French-educated from Kenya. I am an English. I know how to swear, and maybe ask Italian and French. So I asked a lot of them. I asked the speech therapists, I asked all those baby classes you can go to. Different teachers, they all say, as soon as they're in the room, start speaking the languages you want them to learn. When they come in, I didn't know a lot, so I had the very basic word books of the colors, which I knew. So I did that. My husband would read the more intense books to him. And now, my son is ADHD and autistic, mildly, but he's doing fabulous with the French language. Great teachers that understand this. But they're still lacking. My son is at least high enough in the autistic thing that he doesn't need a lot of one-on-one. But I know there's a lot of people in his classroom and other classrooms that if these kids had more one-on-one, they would do so much better. And there would be less on the system when they graduate high school. They'd be able to get better jobs, they'd be able to care for themselves better, instead of being on the system and having to be taken care of for the rest of their life. So stop picking on the French immersion. Yes, there's certain things that need to be worked out. I'm not saying there's not. Stop picking on that. Start looking at the actual grassroots of mental health and of diagnosing and getting teachers and TAs in the system. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I have a daughter in kindergarten, so she is going into grade 1, so I have skin in the game. And while it's my only effect, kindergarten and grade 1, she has effects on the whole world. So that's a big thing. Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a daughter who will be entering grade 1 in September, so I have skin in the game. I am very concerned about the lack of teachers, the number of teachers that we need to hire. We struggled with whether or not to put her in English public school. I don't know if we've made the right decision. In the end, we chose English public school because I wanted her to take French immersion. That choice might be taken away from me. I see that the English prime program has problems. I don't see how 50-50 fixes it. I work in the private sector. We have trouble recruiting. A lot of the folks that I hire now are coming from out of the country. English and French, neither of them are their first language. Their children are in our public school system. They are already struggling. They are not going to get better with a 50-50 program for them. So this doesn't address the fact that more and more we're going to have people coming from outside the country, people whose first language may be neither French nor English. It also takes away the opportunity for parents who want their children to have a French immersion experience to be able to make that choice.
And what it will do is drive parents into the private school system so that it becomes elitist, and those children whose parents can afford it can have that education. I come from a long line of teachers. My grandparents, my mother, my aunts were all public teachers. I believe in the public school system. I do not want to have to take my child out of it for private school. But I will do in the end what's best for her. And I hope that the government is listening. Yes, you have a screening problem. Yes, you have problems with everyone needing conversational French. Dismantling the French immersion program isn't the way to fix it. Splitting the English prime into 50-50 isn't the way to have better literacy in English. I'd like to see a better proposal on the table before you ram this down our throats. Thank you.
Thank you. Mic number 2.
First off, thanks all the impassioned teachers who've come up here to speak. I'm not a teacher, I'm not an educator. I have no experience in that. I have a son, the son that my beautiful wife just spoke about. All I can speak to is this project plan. I can tell you, working in a corporate environment, if someone were to come up to me and propose this as a project plan that is rolling out to thousands of students in September from a project management, from a change management, from a risk management perspective, I would laugh you out of the boardroom. To be blunt, I'm sorry. This is not a project plan. There's no details, there's no data, there's nothing. You can't action this. You can't expect our overworked teachers to action this. You can't move forward with this. This is just not a plan. I'm sorry.
First off, I want to say thank you to one thing I want to say is sorry. I'm the most passionate about this. My daughter is going to school right now. She's in kindergarten. She's an amazing teacher. And actually, I've seen her principal here today. Him showing up here tells me how much he loves his students and how much he cares for his kids. And his school is part of the love he shows for his kids. And the teacher that teaches my daughter every day tells me even more that my kid has to be at that school. I chose that school because I don't live yet. I'm English. My spouse is French. Everybody knows here that has a spouse that's French, a spouse that's English. You put your kid in a francophone school, chances are the focus is going to be more on that French parent. The French parent's going to be more engaged in that school academic because I'm English. I don't feel going into the parent-teacher and I don't feel they have to switch over and speak English to me. Why should they? I'm in their turf, right? So I'm not going to be active in her education as much as I want. Because I want to be the parent that's at the bake sales. I want to be the parent that participates in the field trips. But putting her in a French school only, I can't do that. I'm English. So I chose the only English school in Dieppe. And it is the best English school in Dieppe. And I chose that school. And I'm proud of that school. I'm proud the daughter goes there. Because those teachers tell me every day how much they love my child. They keep us engaged. But I'm telling you, I went there because I want to be part of her life, her academic life. My spouse wants to. We went there thinking that my child, when she leaves kindergarten and goes into school next year, goes into grade 1, that she would be in immersion. That she would have a fighting chance to have the bilingualism that she deserves. Now you're telling me, today, without data, without anything backing up your words, and without in years' time, when these children graduate, they're not bilingual. They got 50% French, 50% English, conversational French. That's great. But can they read it? Can they write it? Absolutely not. You had a teacher here earlier that said that. Sure, it can be conversational English, conversational French. But how are they going to learn how to read and write? And then you say math can't be done in French? Seriously? Show me the data. Show me how this is going to work. You're setting up each and every child, grandchild, all these kids up for failure. You're going to see tons of people leaving the province to go to other provinces to get jobs. Because what? They can't read, write, or speak in French and English proficiently. So they're not going to be able to take on those government jobs that you keep posting that require fluent bilingual. These kids won't be fluent bilingual. Why? Because you gave them a system that's 50%. And then you expect these teachers, these EAs, everybody in the education system to be all prepared and ready for September? Our system right now is broke. You see teachers, they work so hard. They work hard every day for our kids. And they just went through 2 years of sheer hell. And you expect them to be all ready for something you don't even have really ironed out? That has so many holes? And a program that you didn't even ask us, the parents, the teachers. You didn't ask anyone of us that it matters to what we thought. You rolled out something without our consent. So know what that tells us about your government? Your government doesn't care about us. You just make decisions without data to back it up. So I ask you right now, as a pissed off parent, to go back to Mr. Higgs and say that today, I heard from the parents, I heard from teachers, I heard from retired educators that this system is broken and abolishing immersion is not the right way. We need to listen.
Thank you. It's 9:51. So we take a few more. 1, 2, 3. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not a public speaker either, but I'm so happy to see all of these parents and professionals advocating choice for our kids. They're not here. They're not able to voice that. And they should be engaged. They should have this choice too. I have a grade 3 French immersion child and she loves it. I can tell it is her strong suit. She is a linguistic kid. And I also have a kindergarten student who is really looking forward to that equal opportunity. She wants everything that her sister has, of course. Like, that's how kids are. And so they made these signs for me to take tonight. I'm glad you're here. So, this one is from my 8-year-old. J'aime le français. I love French. I wanted her to put like French immersion forever on it, but same sentiment. And this one is from my 5-year-old. I want a job. I wanted him to say like a good French job. I want a job, and also bonjour is not enough.
Thanks everyone for your time. I want to say thank you to Matthew with the technical staff and the Delta staff that were flexible, and thanks for you guys who were flexible with time also. If you didn't have a chance, there's the post questionnaire on your tables. There are 2 virtual sessions that are coming. There's also the survey that's also available until February 3rd. So I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Hogan to system closing remarks. Thank you.
Alors, j'apprécie beaucoup que vous avez partagé vos opinions. Alors, merci beaucoup pour avoir de vous ce soir. En particulier, si vous me permettez, je remercie les enseignants qui ont eu le courage pour parler au public et les autres enseignants qui sont venus ici ce soir. So I'd like to thank everybody that came out this evening. Your opinions are extremely important. They'll help inform us with the other consultations what the next steps will be and where we'll go forward. I really want to take this occasion, if you permit me, to thank the teachers that came out tonight and had the courage to speak at the microphones. Your opinions mean a lot to us. That's why we came tonight. That's why we're having consultations. So I wish you a safe journey home. Thank you again for coming tonight.